I'm George from NBA Hockey.
I'm Jack from Puck Analytics.
I'm Michael from Hockey.Ranks.
And welcome to Triple Shift. This is the 15th episode. I think I said that last week. So that was a mistake. Jeff, again, is not with us because he clearly doesn't care about this podcast at all, and that's okay. But we have Ranks here, which is cool. We're going to do some draft coverage today. And first of all, we'll touch on the three series in the first round of the playoffs that have ended already. And then we'll get into a bit of draft content, which is something we haven't really talked about a whole lot here. But Ranks is kind of the one of the biggest draft guys on Instagram, so it's really cool to have him here.
Thank you.
We can start by talking about, I guess, the Colorado-St. Louis series, which was probably the most lopsided of the three that are over. And I mean, Colorado just absolutely dominated this series from start to finish. So you guys can kind of just jump in and talk about what you saw from it, and then we'll go from there.
Really nothing to say about it. The Avalanche dominated, and McKinnon was insane. That's really all there is to say about that series.
Sure, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I know the numbers may not have lined up. I think Bennington kind of gave it his best effort. But going into it, I think we kind of knew the outcome. I mean, it was a very lopsided series. I thought St. Louis might steal one or two, but no, it was not close.
Yeah, I did I posted this on my story, I think on Instagram a couple days ago. But I saw a comment I forget whose comment section was. Anyway, somebody said that McKinnon could have won this series by himself. So I decided, because I'm just a nerd, to actually go through and count only purely his goals from the series. And how the games would have broken up is Colorado would have won game 1 2-1. They would have tied game 2. They would have lost game 3 1-0, and they would have lost game 4 2-1. So the series literally would have been at worst 3-1 for St. Louis, but one of the games would have went to OT. And that's just his goals. That's not even accounting for assists or anything. So Nathan McKinnon at this point, I think, is kind of the front runner for the Conn Smythe. And I think that's fair. I mean, it really was a dominant effort by him. And I mean, that's without guys like Cale Makar having great series either. They didn't really you didn't really hear Landeskog's name a whole lot. You didn't hear Rantanen a whole lot. Makar wasn't the elite Norris level defenseman that he was all season. So there's still a lot for the Avalanche to improve here. And I mean, with Vegas and Minnesota going along, it's probably for the best. They gotta get some rest, and they should be fired up for that second round series.
Totally.
I know Rank's gonna love this one, but the Bruins Capitals series, after the Capitals won game 1, the Bruins won 4 straight, a lot of which going to OT, and it was a fun series to watch. I kind of wanted, just as a hockey fan, I wanted this one to go longer than 5, but all the games were super competitive besides really game 5 where Boston just kind of took it. But I guess Ranks, if you want to start with this, because I know you probably have a lot to say about the Bruins. So
yeah, I was lucky enough to be at both the Bruins home games for this series, which was awesome. I think after game 1 I was a little nervous, and then game 2 with all the overtimes, the series seemed really close for the most part. And what I found most interesting is that this seems to be a theme year after year, that the players who seem to underperform in the regular season for the Bruins really shine for no apparent reason in the postseason. As Charlie Coyle and Jake DeBrusk finally looked like he was learned how to play hockey again. I'm very happy with how the series went. Obviously, I felt like there was contribution across the board, which is what you're usually afraid of, at least for me as a Bruins fan, because sometimes we rely on the first line far too much. But very promising, especially going forward.
Yeah, I think Ranks covered that pretty well. I've got nothing to add to that.
Yeah, I agree. It was really good to see, like you said, a lot of the kind of depth guys for Boston stepping up, because a lot of people talk about how Boston's very much a one-line team. And even seeing guys like Craig Smith, who I was super high on out of free agency last year, and I know the first almost half of his season this year wasn't very good. and he started to kind of come into it as of late, and he had a really solid first round too. So it's good to see guy like the secondary scoring for this team coming through, and obviously, I mean, Taylor Hall's fit really well onto that second line as well. So I think Boston. I'm pretty sure I had them going to the coming out of this division, and I still feel good about that. But yeah, I really like how they're becoming more of a well-rounded team, and I mean, obviously, that first line is going to be just stupid elite. So yeah. And finally, we had the Oilers and Jets. I was one of the few pages bold enough to pick Winnipeg in the series. I took them in 6. I didn't take them in 4. But with I think it was 10 overtime games or 10 overtime periods that this series had. It was just it was a fun one. And again, it's one of those series that kind of sucks that it ended in 4. But at the same time, I mean, I think it's almost safe to say Edmonton was the better team in all 4 games. But I mean, Winnipeg got the goals when they needed to and walked out with the sweep. So good for them. If you guys want to touch on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think coming into the playoffs, I'll be honest, I was very, very, very low on Winnipeg. I thought the series was going to be easy win for Edmonton. Like you said, you were one of the few people who picked Winnipeg to win this series. But boy, did that not go well. Like you said, I think Edmonton really played well. Not necessarily that they played horribly this series, kind of just didn't go their way most of the time. But I'm not looking forward to the playoff. McKinnon's better than McDavid for another whole off season. Yeah.
Apparently, McDavid not wanting to leave the Oilers. By the way, that came out earlier today. He says he believes in the group. So, yeah, that's fun. But of course he does, because he's Connor McDavid. And he has no personality, so I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me in this one, it really came down to Connor Hellebuyck. That was the reason why I took Winnipeg, and obviously, he was probably the biggest factor in the series. Getting Ehlers back when they did was good too. Obviously, he had the 2-goal game in his first game. But yeah, I mean, Connor Hellebuyck showing why he's arguably the best goalie in the world again, and that was what it came down to for me, honestly, here, and clearly. He played a big part in that.
For sure, yeah.
So now we can get kind of into the meat of this episode, and that's going to be the NHL Draft. So how this is going to work is we'll go through Sportsnet's top 10 draft rankings, because it seems more or less to be kind of the consensus. I say consensus loosely because this draft is insane. So we'll go through those 10 players, and then if there's anybody else that we want to talk about after that, well, we can touch on that. But number 1 on Sportsnet's board, and I know none of us are going to agree with this, but it's Owen Power from Michigan, and it seems like a lot of the hockey minds, I guess, have him going number 1. I wouldn't be shocked if that is the number 1 overall pick. Again, depending on which team gets first overall. But Owen Power, what's kind of the thought process on him coming out of the draft?
Yeah. So funny enough, I think it's so weird how Owen Power, but also not surprising at all how Owen Power has been characterized. Because I do think he's seriously one of the most interesting prospects in this draft. But he's the consensus number 1 for one reason only, because of his height. So, that's unfortunate. So I think about Power, there's a lot that I really like that projects to a high level, especially his transition game. People see the clips of how tall he is skating through the middle of the ice, but more than that, his passing. He's a great stretch pass, and in the offensive zone, he contributes. He got good vision. I wouldn't say elite by any means. His defensive game, I guess we're going to move into that, is also okay. He's good at defending the rush up the sides. In the middle, he struggles, and sometimes his positioning looks off. It's just there's so many things that kind of make him out of the ordinary for a prospect, that it's kind of tough to see how he's being characterized. But I think he's definitely in my view, a top 5 pick. Maybe if I don't even rank him that high, but I just think for what he could become at the NHL level.
Yeah, that's fair. I have him probably around that same tier, kind of the 5 to like I guess 4 to like 7 tier is probably where I'd have him. I do think he's going to go number 1 overall. And my big thing with prospects, and this is going to sound really conceited, I guess, is that if the first thing that anybody mentions about a guy is his height, there probably isn't a whole lot else to talk about with him. Because I feel like if you can't point to like anything on the ice immediately standing out to you, that's kind of an issue. But obviously, yeah, I mean, I think he still has a lot of potential, and he's an interesting player. I just don't see a team like if Detroit, for instance, gets the first overall pick. I can't see Steve Yzerman following the consensus here. I mean, he'll probably take like Ratty just because it's Steve Yzerman. He loves just kind of going off the board with his picks.
I think I just personally I worry more about him than any other player being rushed into the NHL because I think with time he could easily become the player that they're kind of. I mean, you read the write-ups on Power, and even the scouts kind of seem to know that he's not that great. I think what was the line in Bob McKenzie's rankings that he's like Victor Hedman but worse than him at everything. That's like almost exactly what they said.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not really a rousing endorsement, but yeah, I understand. Yeah. I understand the point they're trying to make there. Again, probably a reference to similar like body types and stuff too. So, next up they have Matthew Veneers from also from Michigan, because this draft is just dominated by Michigan Wolverines, which at the same time is something that kind of worries me on its own. Just because usually when you see a team that's just loaded with guys, usually 1 or 2 of them are getting kind of carried by the rest. Especially like when it comes to like amateur drafts. And I think there's 3 or 4. Yeah, there's like 4 Wolverines that could go in the top 10, I think.
3, yeah.
3, yeah. Which is like a lot. So that worries me a little bit. But yeah, anyway, Matthew Veneers.
I think Veneers, even before the World Juniors was starting to get notice, just because of how such a complete player he is, like it says. But he's my first overall pick. He's driven great numbers beyond just their points, but offensively and defensively, and the 90th percentile for both, adjusted for everything. When you watch him play, he really has a great sense of the game that it's hard to kind of describe, but it's just as a playmaking forward. I think he has first line potential in the NHL as a player. That's where I kind of see him fitting in eventually, whether it be on the center or not. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm more or less in the same camp again. I think there's not really like that top tier like elite player in this draft, but I think it's kind of similar to almost the Heischer draft, I guess would probably be the best comparison I could make. Just in the fact that there's just a bunch of like good players who could be like first line solid like complementary guys on a first line. But you're not going to find like your like Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid, obviously, in this class. But again, I think for a lot of teams that could be really interesting. Veneers is somebody that really interests me. You had him number 1 on your board.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna call you out for your rankings here too. But you know, I agree. I think Veneers like easily could be the best player of this draft. But yeah, again, like it's kind of a wash at the top, like 5 or 6. Like it could really go anyway.
Oh, totally.
With any of those guys. Okay, number 3. Barrett Clark. They have number 3 from Barrie, another defenseman. And Barrett, you had
Brant.
Brant. Yeah,
Excuse
I'm sorry,
me.
Brant. I don't know why I said Barrett. Brant Clark, number 5 on your board. I can't read today.
Yeah.
That's okay.
No worries. Yeah, I had Brant Clark as my highest rated defenseman. I had him that way early, then I moved him back when he was playing Slovakia, and now he's back after the recent U18s. I think he looked really good there. I think the trouble with the OHL guys is that, in a sense, you want to not punish them for not playing in the OHL this season, but also that's a concern because, they skipped out when even it's a different game playing in Slovakia than in the CHL, and sometimes that can ruin players' development. Kind of like what we saw in Carson Lambos this year, but that's a different story. So for Clark, really, the story is the best offensive defenseman. I don't think anyone can contest that in this draft. Yeah, in terms of skating, probably the best skating defenseman too. His defensive game, I think, could use work, but he's fast enough to defend the rush, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, probably the best offensive defenseman in this draft. It does, and even just looking through what Sportsnet has here, just a lot of the like WHL guys in general just aren't ranked very highly. And I do think that is a legitimate concern about them not playing in one, I guess, the premier prospect league. Although getting some playing time anywhere is still going to be beneficial. But wasn't there a couple guys who played like in the AHL too or something crazy like that this year? There's like that goalie that signed with the Marlies, I think.
Yeah, well, that's not draft eligible. So I think a little bit older. I think like Gogolev was playing for the Marlies. That's one of them, but yeah.
Yeah, it was a weird year with the OHL not playing,
the
especially the OHL too, because it's probably like the biggest of the three.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if you know this. There's a tournament coming up that they're playing in Erie. It's a showcase kind of thing for OHL players. So I'm definitely gonna be watching that.
That's interesting.
But a bunch of OHL guys are gonna be in that kind of later rounds, most of them. But yeah, it's gonna be good to see him play at least.
Yeah, I didn't know about that, so that's cool. There you go. Some breaking news there on the podcast. Number 4 here on Sportsnet is Simon Evanson. Probably pronounced that wrong, but it is what it is. From Sweden. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the team.
Yeah.
But another defenseman. You had him 10th on your board, just outside of that S tier.
Yeah.
Not as high on him as Sportsnet is, apparently.
Yeah. So again, another case of being tall, meaning you good at hockey and you play big hockey, man. So for Simon Evanson, the numbers don't treat him well. What he's done is not necessarily phenomenal, or definitely 4th overall worthy. So what you're drafting in Simon Evanson is a player who has insanely high-end tools, can become that player. Now, it's important because sometimes he can look like, oh wow, this guy's could be the best player in this draft. And other times he looks eerily similar to Muka Madulin on his passing and his decision making. So, especially if you're taking him at 4, that's not a risk I'm willing to take. I have him in the top 10, and that's if you're getting risky. I think I'm lower on his defensive game than most people say. He's reliable defensively, but I'm not sure his impact or his playmaking in the defensive zone is necessarily that productive for Frölunda. But of course, Frölunda is an insane developing team. So I'm hoping that with time, again, definitely don't rush Simon Evanson into the NHL, but he can become a high-end defenseman. Yeah. I think what I heard someone say is that looking back, he might be a player you want to take higher, and I can see that happening. I think in a redraft, he's either going to be a lot higher or a lot lower, depending on how his development goes.
That's fair. It feels like a Vancouver Canucks pick, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Just from the way that being kind of a boomer bust guy, like either like your Elias Pettersson or Olli Levy no real middle ground there.
Yeah.
Just seems like the kind of guy that their management team seems to like. Although Luke Hughes would obviously be their number one just to get him to play with Quinn, but we'll get to Luke in a bit. Where was I here? Number 5, right? Yeah, number 5.
Yes.
Dylan, is it Gauthier?
Dylan Gunther?
Gunther, there it is. Yeah, see, names are not my strength today. From the Edmonton Oil Kings. You had him 8th, right above Owen.
8th is a little deceiving. The issue with this year's draft, which is why I have 9 players on my S tier, is that they're so close, it's absurd. I mean, if you wanted to make an argument for taking Dylan Gunther 2nd, I'd say, you know what? I don't hate it. His game, how he's played, is really high end, and especially this season, insane in the WHL. I think we're talking about, was it? I forget the sample. It hasn't been a lot of games, which is worrisome when you're taking a player that high. But the thing about Gunther is that I think he's got good puck skills, good speed. Nothing I would say is elite, which is one of the big, issues when scouting players. You take a guy who's good at everything, not elite at something, or a guy who shows elite tools, and you can develop that further. 12 games it was. I got it now.
24 points in 12 games.
Yeah, which is crazy, right? Obviously.
But it's 12 games. So.
Yeah, yes, yeah, of course. So yeah, I wouldn't mind taking him 5. I think he's a player who's a safer pick, at least relative to the guys in this year's draft. So I don't mind if you take him higher, just out of that. But yeah, a guy, definitely a solid player.
It's one of those like high ceiling, low floor kind of guys.
Yes.
That won't really bust, but isn't going to turn into a huge steal. So again, maybe in a draft like this, that's what you look for, because it's such an insane year, and there's so many like players kind of in that same group. Like you said, I think you had 9 in your like S tier, and maybe a team just plays it safe when there isn't that like clear cut number 1 Connor McDavid like player.
Yeah, if hypothetically speaking, if Buffalo gets the first overall pick, and they're like, they'll pick Power, by the way.
Oh, yeah,
but if they seriously
take Owen Power.
if they want to sit down and consider for a second, maybe taking Gunther, I think that'd be the right move for them, honestly. But
yeah, just getting like somebody who's a stable player is probably for the best for
100%.
a team like the Sabres.
Yeah.
Number 6 for them is Kent Johnson, who I've seen anywhere from like 5 to like 20 on draft boards. So
yes.
You had him 7. So I mean, not insanely off of what you had, I guess, but Kent Johnson obviously being the kind of the third guy from that Michigan team. I feel like one of these guys is going to bust. Although I think it's probably more likely to be Power at this point. But Kent Johnson.
Yeah, Ken Johnson is maybe one of the most interesting. I've said that for everyone. This is such an interesting draft. It's really fun to scout, even though there's not a lot of high elite talent. But so for Ken Johnson, I think the big player comparison that I think is fair is Patrick Kane. Not in terms of upside, but how he plays the game. Easily, without a doubt, the most best puck skills in this draft class. I'm trying to think of the right word.
Just creative.
Yeah, that's a good word. Yeah, exactly. Just a very high offensive player, especially on Michigan. It's hard to stand out in a team like that, but he did. I think he drove offense, at least in my model, as well as Matthew Veneers. But then speaking defensively, that's a yeesh. Yeah, he's definitely not the most solid player defensively. You're drafting really high up upside offensive guy. And I think if he can develop, he could become a first line Patrick Kane. I say esque, but not in terms of skill, just play style kind of guy.
Just looking at the teams that would be in contention for that like 5th, 6th overall pick, I think the LA Kings would be super interesting for him.
That'd be fun.
Mainly because they already have kind of that center depth figured out. I mean, he could almost just play on they could just transition him more into like a winger even. And play him with somebody like Byfield. I think could be really fun. Just with the amount of young players that team like the Kings have, I think that could be really fun. And I mean, it's LA, so like, why not have have somebody as skilled as that play in a big market, not a big hockey market, but a big market. I mean, it's LA still.
Yeah.
Although in the words of Tyler Toffoli, they're all E-list celebrities. So. Number 7 on their board is William Eklund, also from Sweden. Again, not going to try and pronounce any of these team names. Bad enough with the names. But William Eklund, you have number 2 on your board. So yeah, I mean, I guess the question is why you what do you see in Eklund that Sportsnet doesn't?
This is the big debate again with prospects. I mean, this whole list is very close, like I said, but at the level he's playing at right now, he probably should be my first overall pick. I mean, I think Eklund has played, I don't want to say a stat that's wrong, but if it's wrong, it's close. The most minutes for a draft eligible in the SHL, like in a long time. I think in the 2000s, only Elias Lindholm has had a higher points per game than him. So, that's pretty good. But then you wonder, well, this is, that seems like high-end talent to me. The issue is the way he plays the game is a lot like, just like again, we get back to the idea of not being elite, even though I'd say his IQ and vision is pretty elite, but that's not something that you can really, tangibly project. Extremely solid defensively, offensively. He's definitely a playmaker. He's like an okay skater, and I guess that's where the issue comes from. His tools, I guess you could say, might not be elite, but the way he plays the game, if that can project exactly to the NHL and just move it up a higher level, you've got yourself a really solid first liner.
I know for me, when I did my kind of draft rankings a couple weeks ago, and it was more like projecting the teams, more than just ranking everybody, because like you said, it's super close anyway. I thought Detroit would be a really good fit. It just kind of feels like a Steve Yzerman kind of guy, just with all the tools that he has. And I mean, Yzerman's kind of picked in that similar group. I mean, Lucas Raymond had had quite a bit of concerns around him too, and Yzerman went there. Same with Mort Seider. It feels like that's kind of the fit here, and Detroit's going to have a high enough pick that he'll probably still be there anyway. But I don't know. I mean, I guess what do you think with him and a team like Detroit, or where do you see him fitting?
I can definitely see it. I mean, Detroit has had a pretty big pattern of
they also have the Swedish players, yeah.
Swedish players, yeah. But I even though Detroit was kind of memed on last year, I like the system that they're starting to form in Detroit. Especially if you're going to surround them with highly talented players like Lucas Raymond. I think that can be a great fit for him, yeah.
I love Lucas Raymond out of the draft last year too, so I mean, Obviously all the memes about Detroit are there, but I think they got a really good player in Lucas Raymond.
100%.
Luke Hughes at number 8. Devils. It's the battle between the Devils and Canucks here for Jack and Quinn's brother. It would be really cool to see him play with one of those two, especially with Quinn, because they could actually play together.
Yeah.
But I mean, Luke Hughes, another guy that's I've seen bounce around rankings. You had him 6th, but I mean, just like literally all these guys in the top 10, I've seen them everywhere. I mean, I've seen people have Luke Hughes going number 1, so it's been that kind of year. But again, the U.S. development program producing a bunch of really good players again this year, and Luke Hughes is definitely one of them.
Yeah. I think the big thing is him as a skater. I mean, he's a great skating defenseman, especially for his size. Offensively, I think that's where you're getting them more of an offensive defenseman. But yeah, I think no matter where he goes, he'll turn into a really solid player. I'm less worrisome about him as the other guys, the defensemen, I guess, in this draft, which is why I had him as the highest ranked defenseman for so long. But yeah.
That's kind of my one concern about, like, obviously if he went to the Canucks is that him and Quinn would just be a defensive black hole. It would just be kind of a mess. But yeah, I mean, he was a super fun player to watch in when I saw him. I think he does have a lot of offensive upside, and I mean, honestly, I don't think Quinn Hughes himself is a terrible comparison. Just in play style, the fact that they're both kind of pure offensive defensemen. Yeah, I like Luke Hughes. I think I had him 7th when I did mine. Yeah, 7th. But yeah, I mean, any of these guys could go anywhere. I just, again, I want to see him go to either New Jersey or Vancouver. Because, why not?
Yeah.
Number 9 for them was Mason Mctavish from Peterborough. And there's not a ton of Canadians on this list. I think he was the 2nd so far. 3rd Canadian on their list. You had Mason at 16 on your rankings, just outside of the A tier. So I guess, what did you not like from Mason Mctavish this year?
Yeah, I should clarify. Well, I think Mason McTavish for a long time has been in that range, which has been kind of shocking to me. He's been top 10 from the beginning of last year to now. And I had him in the 20s, and I saw him in the U18s, and I moved him up to 16. I had to keep him behind Cole Sillinger. Cole Sillinger and McTavish are the two, I guess you would say, pure goal-scoring players in this year's draft. But Sillinger, I think, generated an insane. We're not. This is not about Sillinger. Forget it. McTavish is just a real great offensive player. The reason I have him lower is just because I like other guys more and their upside. I think that Mason McTavish will probably settle into a top 6 role on whatever team he goes into. But as a great scorer, I think he probably could drive a second line in the NHL level. I think, yeah, that's what I'll say.
Yeah, I think he's an interesting player. I think his ceiling isn't great compared to some of the other guys like ahead of him here. I didn't have him in my top 10 either. But again, like, it's just this. We're gonna keep saying it. The draft is so wide open that, I mean, anything can happen, and it really wouldn't be that surprising. But yeah, I didn't have a very high grade on him either. And finally, number 10 on this board here is Chaz Lucas, also from the U.S. development program. And you had him 17th as your first B tier player.
Yeah.
So I guess you can dive into that.
Yeah. I think the big concern, if you talk to anyone about Lucius, is his skating. He's definitely not the best skater. So yeah, I think in this year, especially saw with guys like Ostujov and Lucius, who produced at insanely high rates, point wise. Like, wow, this is incredible. And you watch him play, and it's like, okay, this is not as good as the points show. He's got a great shot. I think he's a high IQ kind of center, but not to the point where I'd say it supersedes what he lacks in terms of skating, and kind of his positioning, if I could say it that way. I don't know how to explain it better. But I think the guys in front of him in this draft all have better, at least the guys that I've ranked, have better tangible tools. I can't see Lucius ever playing a first line role under any circumstances. I might come back to bite that. It's going to come back to bite me if he does. But yeah.
No, I understand. Like, I understand what you mean by that. And I mean, him at 10 on this board seems a little strange. Like, he's not somebody that I've even seen a lot of like the big time, I guess, draft scouts talking about as a top 10 player. So it seems like that was kind of like the kind of curveball of the 10 that they listed here. But is there anybody else that you wanted to touch on here outside of those guys that you think were underrated?
I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention one Fabien Lysell. They have him ranked 11th, which is okay. I think that's fine. I think Craig Button. Hold on, I need to make sure I'm right about this before I say it. Craig Button had Fabien. Oh no, not loading. Oh, I think he had him ranked in the 20s. I'll say that. If you can find that, that'd be nice. But that is, I don't know how you can watch him and then rank him below guys like Zach Dean, I think. So what is there to like? Pretty much everything offensively. I think he is the guy who has the high-end skill offensively in this draft.
At 27.
Skating, puck skill, 27.
Yeah,
I mean, that is, I can't fathom how that's even possible. He's got the puck skills, the speed, vision, playmaking, shooting. I mean, offensively, he's almost the full package player. I mean, you always wonder how it'll translate, but that's pretty much any prospect. In terms of tools, I have him ranked 4th. His production wasn't great in the SHL, but I think with time, you can't be that skilled and not see dramatic increases in how you play, especially as his ice time increases.
Yeah, it seems like it was just, yeah, I mean, Craig Button's list was wild to begin with, so it's really not that surprising. Anyway, so a lot of these numbers that you've referenced here, people can actually find them, I believe, with the link in your Instagram bio. You have a whole bunch of prospect charts that are completely free for people to use. So
they are.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's something that I reference a lot, actually. Yeah, I mean, if you just kind of want to talk about the process, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
Kind of goes into those.
I just overhauled kind of the adjusting system, which has made them way more accurate and awesome to see. But pretty much break down briefly what it's kind of about. The idea is there's a website that does amazing work, pick224.com, but when you look at it, it's just raw data pretty much. Oh boy, that's not good. Just raw data, and it's hard to kind of visualize. So I pretty much just adjusted for factors like even strength, time on ice, difficulty of your league, teammate scoring, all that kind of stuff, and put into columns like points, shots for, how to like offensive generation compared to when you're on the ice versus off the ice, defensive generation compared to when you're on off the ice. Yeah, they're just helpful to more at the top of the draft, a little bit less helpful, but for finding gems later in the draft, it's extremely useful so that you can watch more of them play.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the draft, there's so many different leagues and so many different players to kind of focus on. It's hard to really follow everybody like in the NHL. So, I mean, if you guys are a fan of of like the Evolving Hockey RPM charts. I'm sure you'll love these. Very similar style. And yeah, I mean, it's really cool that, again, those are completely free to use. And I know, I forget who else it was. I think it was Elite Prospects on Instagram has draft charts too. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely tools out there for you guys that are free. And this, again, is just a really cool analytics tool that you don't have to pay for. So yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we can move into our game for this week, and how this is gonna work. I don't know if you guys watched The Price is Right before. It's this little game show that goes on TV once in a while. They spin a big wheel, it's fun. But they have a game on there, and basically what they do is they take like grocery items, and they give you like a price, like whatever. They'll show you a carton of eggs for $6, and you have to say whether the price of those eggs is higher or lower than the actual retail price. Like the actual retail price would be like $4.50, so you'd say lower and you'd win. So we're gonna do that, but with draft picks. So what I've done is I've gone through and picked out some bigger names here in the draft from mostly recent years, and I'm gonna give you guys a number for where they were picked in the draft, and you have to tell me whether or not that was higher or lower than the actual pick that they were used with. So, for instance, if I say like Paul Bissonnette and I say 115th, you guys would have to tell me whether or not he was picked higher than that or lower than that. So in this case, it would be lower. He was picked 121st overall. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
Lower is closer to 1?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh, no, sorry. Higher will be closer to 1.
Okay, higher.
Yeah,
All
so
right,
higher is in earlier in the draft.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so are we good? We got on the rules there?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So Jack is like our reigning champion of everything, so he gets to pick whether or not he wants to go first or second.
I'll let the guest go first here.
All right. So it'll be first to 5 points, or whoever just gets the most after I'm done after I'm done like what I've went through. So we'll start off here with Jonathan Quick at 70th overall. Was he taken higher or lower than 70th?
I'm going to say higher.
Higher. That would be incorrect. He was taken 72nd overall. So just 2 picks. 2 picks after that. Yeah, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, you had to do that to him.
But all the names, I will say, like all the names are fairly like popular. Like they're good hockey players. So I'm not gonna throw like some random like career AHLer at you.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
All right. So this will be over to Jack. This guy was a really popular name. Out of the draft. He had some issues with the Nashville Predators, ended up becoming a New York Ranger. Jimmy Vesey, higher or lower than 50th overall? Remember, higher is closer to 1 in this case. 50th overall, Jimmy Vesey.
Lower.
Lower, that is correct. He was taken 66th overall.
Yeah.
Which is weird because he had like there was so much like drama
so
around
much
him,
hype on him,
and he was like a 3rd round pick.
Yeah.
It's just. I guess because nobody just holds out. Like that's just not a.
He won the Hobie Baker, right? Is that why?
That was why. Yeah, but
yeah.
3rd round pick, Jimmy Vesey. And then now he's like, I think he's still. He's not on the Leafs anymore. I can't remember. He's on some 4th line somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, it's 1-0 for Jack. Next one here is Keith Yandle, 92nd overall. Higher or lower than 92 for Keith Yandle? And it's ranks, by the way.
Yeah. Lower.
Lower, yeah, that's correct. He was taken 105th overall. Keith Yandle, really good draft steal there by the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah.
At 105. All right, this might just be kind of a gimme. So sorry.
Don't say that. I'm
now you're putting pressure on him. Yeah,
I get it wrong now.
Max Domi at 13th overall, higher or lower? 13th.
You went higher.
Higher. He went 12th. That is correct.
Yeah.
Had to throw a couple 1st rounders in there. Just to, give you guys a bit of a chance. So we go from Max Domi to so it might be a little bit more difficult. Matt Martin at 150th.
Oh boy. Would you say 150th?
150th, yeah, 150.
I feel like you wouldn't pick. Let's say, man, higher.
Higher, that is correct. He was taking 148th overall. So
slim margins here, huh?
Is that 2-2 now? You guys tied?
Yep.
2-2. All right, Here we go. Here's another first rounder. Vladimir Tarasenko, 19th overall.
You went 16th overall, so higher.
How did you just pull that number out of your ass?
Because Ottawa traded that pick.
Well, that's true.
Or was
it
right. 15th?
No, he was 16th overall. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. All the Ottawa Senators traded the Vladimir Tarasenko pick.
If you just look back, by the way, at Tarasenko's production in the Russian league, it's insane. He went as low as 16th.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's such a big against Russians for some reason in the Nhl Draft, but it's crazy he went that low.
It's the Don Cherry effect. There you go. This isn't. I said a lot of these guys are going to be superstars. This one isn't. But he's a big social media personality. Zach Boychuk at 20th overall.
Oh boy.
First round pick, Zach Boychuk, by the way.
I feel like you're playing this up. Like, it's even worse.
He was a first round pick. It's true.
No, I know, but I feel like
20th overall.
Why did you rank all the hard ones?
That's a first round pick in the the 2000s. I don't think that's that crazy.
It's also Zach Boychuk.
Oh,
Who cares?
I feel like you wouldn't have picked one that's lower though. Just because it's really sad. Okay. Higher.
That's correct. He went 14th overall. I believe it was the Carolina Hurricanes. So there you go. I think we're still tied. So with 4 more to go here on my list, we might end up with a tie, which honestly is good because that means Jack doesn't win, and that's a positive.
Well, I mean, I could win.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Hopefully I throw you off this one. Dominic Kubalik at 177. Higher or lower? Picked by the LA Kings, by the way.
Yeah.
Dominic Kubalik.
I'm gonna go lower.
Lower is correct. It was 191 for Dominic Kubalik. Really good draft steal there by the Kings, and then I believe they traded him. So
yep,
it sucks.
Less good.
Yeah. Okay, now for the final 3 here, to make it more interesting, I went kind of old school. So we have some big names, but before all of our times. So hopefully that makes it a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
Chris Osgood, 60th overall.
I'll say lower.
That is incorrect. It was higher. He was taken 54th by the Detroit Red Wings. So Jack can win it here with this one, and we're going to go...
Put that much pressure on me.
NHL TV personality Ray Ferraro, 112th.
That guy's a legend. What do you mean?
Higher or lower? 112th overall.
Higher.
That is correct. He was taken 88th. So there you go, Jack. Once again wins again, but we'll do the last one here just for fun. Thomas Steen, you guys can both guess, at 90th overall. Higher or lower for Thomas Steen at 90?
Lower, why not?
All right, I'll make it interesting. Higher.
Higher? It was lower, 103rd for Thomas Steen. So there you go, Jack wins again. One day we'll find somebody who can beat him. We'll just keep writing out guests. And what we have to do is we have to bring on an NHL player and just ask the NHL player a bunch of obscure questions about their past, and that's how Jack will lose.
Oh yeah,
he might still find a way to win.
Fair.
Yeah. It's very true. So anyway, where can they find you guys? Jack, I guess you can go first.
Instagram, Twitter, Puck Analytics.
There you go.
Yeah, just on Instagram, hockey.ranks.
There you go. And you guys can find me on Instagram at MBI Hockey, and on Twitter at Nothing But Iron 1. And I just had a tweet hit like 200 likes today, so that was really cool.
Ooh.
Yeah, I feel famous now.
A lot of attention there, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think I gained any followers because of it, though, so that's unfortunate. But anyway, thanks again for Ranks for coming on here and talking about the NHL draft. It's again, if you guys want really good draft content, he's kind of my go-to guy, and he should be for all you guys too. So, yeah, thanks for coming around. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week for episode 16. Jeff apparently is going to make his return, so be prepared for that. Maybe, unless he disappears again. But
you'll probably disappear.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for listening. I'll see you next week.